Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stutzman from Indiana, you have 6 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong opposition to this amendment, and frankly, I just am disappointed that, it's even introduced to begin with, because, this amendment would eliminate the instructions for Ways and Means Committee along with the instructions for the Financial Services Committee on which I serve. By removing the instructions, this amendment would raise taxes on the millions of Americans who've seen their taxes reduced by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This is backwards from where we need to go. For the past 4 years, the American people's pocketbook has taken a massive hit due to Bidenomics and inflation and bad governing by Washington, D.C. Mr. Chairman, the carnage has to stop, and the American people cannot continue to pay for failed Democrat policies. The TCJA provided much-needed reform to a tax code that hadn't been revised in almost 40 years. Despite the baseless claims from the other side of the aisle, the TCJA was immensely successful and outperformed several expectations. After it passed, real median household income rose by $5,000, a bigger increase in just 2 years than in the prior 8 years combined. Additionally, wages increased 4.9%, the fastest 2-year growth in real wages in 20 years. The poverty rate and unemployment rate reached at their lowest levels in 50 years, with all-time lows in unemployment among African American and Hispanic workers and those without a high school degree. Despite this progress, we are talking today about an amendment that would prohibit the TCJA from being extended. This is out of line and not what the American people have sent us here to do at all. If this amendment is successful and the TCJA is not extended across the nation, the average taxpayer would see a 22% tax hike if the Trump tax cuts expire. Beyond that, here's a couple of examples. A family of 4 making the median income in the United States would see a tax increase of almost $1,700 if the Trump tax cuts expire. 40 million Americans would see their household's child tax credit cut in half. This doesn't sound like the 1% or the billionaires we've been hearing about all day. 91% of all taxpayers would see their guaranteed standard deduction slashed in half. 26 million small businesses would be hit with a 43.4% top tax rate if the Section 199A small business deduction expires. 7 million taxpayers would be impacted by the return of the alternative minimum tax. The death tax exemption on 2 million family-owned farms would be slashed in half next year. Mr. Chairman, it is beyond the pale that an amendment with such a harmful impact can be considered in this committee. But this amendment also has a second part. The amendment would also strike the $1 billion reconciliation instructions for the Financial Services Committee, which would provide the committee with the necessary flexibility to craft policies within their jurisdiction that would embolden the American economy and truly allow us to enter a golden era. Mr. Chairman, I can tell you as a business owner, I have seen that Washington, the CFPB, and these agencies have thrown nothing but a wet blanket over this economy. The discretion that the Financial Services Committee has to rein in wasteful spending while crafting a framework that would truly allow the American banking industry to be unleashed. I have seen it personally and experienced it personally that the American banking system is not working for everyday Americans across our country, and especially in rural areas, where the rural communities are struggling to make ends meet after inflation has driven up the cost for families across our country. We stand at a critical juncture for our country, and the situation is very clear. We can follow the failed policies of old that have brought us to this point with more government. We have more engagement from Washington, D.C. in our everyday lives, now more than ever. Or we can look forward and follow a path that President Trump has laid out with less government, efficient government, a government that's going to work for the people and not work for themselves. This budget does chart a new path forward whereby free enterprise can flourish, which has made America the greatest nation on earth. There's more wealth in this country because Americans have the opportunity to build, create, and innovate for themselves, but also what that does is it creates jobs for families that help them accomplish their dreams, and they can do big things for themselves and for their futures. This budget also allows for energy production to be unleashed, and Americans can reap the rewards of that work. Mr. Chairman, providing relief to working-class families while also ridding the nation of wasteful spending and being better stewards of taxpayer dollars is imperative to leave a stronger fiscal situation for generations to come. This budget resolution and corresponding instructions are the first steps to do that, and I look forward to supporting this resolution that's in front of us and appreciate the hard work, Mr. Chairman, that you've done and this committee has done, and know that with the partnership with the White House that is revealing so much wasteful spending, that this will make our country, put our country back on a strong fiscal track. Thank you, and I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Indiana, and now